Hey, welcome to Framework and happy holidays to you, whatever holiday you celebrate, whatever pagan demon you worship, or try and avoid this holiday season. We're here to talk to you about Christmas movies and, in particular, Krampus, the sort of newer horror-themed Christmas movie that came out, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. And we, of course, our framework. That's me, Al Schwartz, and my partner here, John Bernard, who's a big, what do you call yourselves? Cramp heads?
I like that. Cramp heads.
Crampers?
Crampers. Crampers, I think, get, that it's unsettling. You don't want to be called a cramper. Yeah, okay. I'll accept that. Yeah, big fan of Krampus here.
You don't want to be in a room with a cramper.
No. What are they going to do? Yeah. They're probably not going to smell great. Yeah, we're here to talk about 2015's Krampus, the Michael Dougherty film. This is kind of a special one for me, you see, because this is a film that came out and people saw it and most people were like, it's okay. Some people liked it a little less, some a little more, but that's basically where people landed on it. I think this is great. This is one of those weird ones that I alone kind of think is a masterpiece. And those are always fun to talk about, to defend, as it were.
Yeah, masterpiece is a tough label to it. It's a heavy crown to place on a movie, particularly one like this. I mean, I think my best case for this is that it's a pretty good Tales from the Crypt episode. A really good one. One of the best.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. And I think that is the way to approach it, sure. But it's also, I guess my argument is the most subversive Christmas film ever made, I think. I think this does a better job of deconstructing the holiday film than any other film I can think of.
Than your Bad Santas.
Bad Santa is a good one. I think that's on the higher echelon, maybe, of the deconstructive Christmas movie. You might also take a look at Scrooged, or I don't know. There's even elements of like legitimate classics that everyone loves, like Elf, that are a little bit subversive, and that's the fun of it. But the thing that is special about Krampus, for me, is that it kind of takes all of the cinematic language that we associate with the Christmas movie and reapplies it in a different direction. And it makes it the source of menace and horror. It's less direct Christmas horror movie than something like Black Christmas or any sort of slasher film or anything with explicit violence or that is rated R. Those are just like direct opposites of what you would expect from Christmas. This is kind of more insidious, I think.
There is violence in the movie. I mean,
there's no blood, though.
I suppose.
No one actually dies on camera. They kind of just they get dragged away,
swallowed.
Yeah, they get swallowed,
They get consumed. Like that.
I guess that one would count, yeah. Well, I don't know. We're in the realm of Christmas magic at that point. So
yeah, they don't act like the kid is dead at that point. They're still talking about we have to get her back. They're like, I don't know, like a giant. You saw her.
Yeah, a Christmas worm,
like giant fangs. Her. Yeah,
right. And I mean that's the kind of conversation I'm really just excited to have here. Does that count as death? So I don't know how to explain this film. It's not a complicated movie per se. This is Michael Dougherty, the guy who made Trick or Treat, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and no other films. So sort of a limited filmography. Godzilla, I guess, is the paycheck, and the other two are a pretty clear, pairing of films. They feel similar. If you've seen Trick or Treat, it's the Halloween version of this.
I am no help to you here. I have not seen either of those other ones.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's a good filmmaker, I think. I like his horror films. They have, in their way, sort of a Robert Eggers isn't quite the the name drop I want. No, it is. It is. He's fascinated by mythology and folklore. He goes about it in a very different way, to different ends, but that is sort of the wellspring.
Well, he's interested in modern mythology and modern iconography around this, and Eggers is
Right.
obsessed with recreating ancient forms of that in a way that we've sort of lost touch with.
Right. And I don't want to actually say I'd be fascinated to see Eggers' Krampus film. That kind of feels like a way to fuck him up more than anything. Something that overtly silly would have to, it would be tough.
I don't know that he's capable of. I mean, I guess The Lighthouse is pretty silly when you really get down to it. But even so, I feel like the Eggers Krampus movie would probably be too similar to what his Nosferatu is going to be.
It is Slavic mythology about darkness. But the weird thing that would trip him up, I think, was, well, you have to add Christmas whimsy to it.
Well, but it's still like you're punished for inviting in this demon.
Mm-hmm. Sure. He'd have an in, I'm sure. I think it's better suited to something like this, though, I guess is my point, which is a family comedy of sorts that just happens to be kind of upsetting. And yes, not bloody, but definitely violent and full of really good monsters.
Yeah, I'd say the real strength of this is some of those monsters are genuinely not even like disgusting exactly, but I hate them on sight and want to destroy them.
They are Weta Workshop. These are like this is straight out of like New Zealand. It's the Lord of the Rings people. Got hired out to make this film. A lot of the actors are New Zealanders. It's a New Zealand production in many ways. So I think you can kind of see the design philosophy of Lord of the Rings in these. These are really well considered.
Well, and there's a line backwards through Lord of the Rings to Dead Alive and
yes,
and all that.
Very much so.
Although that is more stomach churning, like physically revolting. That again, this isn't necessarily that. It's not disgusting, but it is revolting. Like my mind revolts against these clown elf creatures and whatnot.
Jack in the Box is a trip. Yeah,
that's the best of them.
So this film, if you are unfamiliar with this, yes, 2015. It's a family holiday setup. Essentially, it's sort of a family gathering for Christmas. The two families getting together that are related by blood, but they don't kind of get along. It's a pretty traditional setup with a sort of a Kevin McAllister stand-in at the center of it from Home Alone, and David Koechner from the Anchorman films is on hand as sort of like a cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation type, and it's just sort of quoting all these like iconic. Multiple times you've seen these Christmas movies watched, it duplicates the basic aesthetic of those movies from the the like a little bit too wealthy suburbs to the just copious, like intense amounts of Christmas decorations, just like way more than should be spent on these things that you see in films of this type. And it is relationships and conflicts that you would expect to see about he still believes in Santa. Let's make fun of him. It's that kind of movie.
And it's not, I don't think it's a movie. It's not trying to hide or avoid the Kevin McAllister and Cousin Eddie comparisons.
Leaning into them.
Yeah.
I would say that's the mythology it's pulling off of more than Slavic Christmas devil stuff. It is going off of our relationship with these movies that we watch every year.
No. I think that's I mean, it makes so much sense here. The over set decorated aspect of the Griswolds having Christmas decor draped from every surface of their home in a way that it's almost like a corollary to the thing of how you communicate breakfast visually on film. Is that any suburban mother has to make a 6-course breakfast just so that there's platters of bacon and stacks of pancakes and there's eggs sitting on the table to communicate that, so somebody can come and have one sip of orange juice and say I'm late for working out and leave without touching any of it. There's the Christmas movies have a more blown out version of that, just sort of even when they're not. I mean, I think it's to a purpose in this movie. It's that heightened environment is really crucial to this. But even when it's a more casual Christmas movie, that still just kind of comes with the Hollywood territory.
I mean, any Hallmark film absolutely traffics in that, They're limited only by their budget for set. That's pretty much, if it's an unlimited budget, they live in the house from Home Alone, basically.
Right. And sets are what they're spending their money on. They're not, spending their money on A-list casting.
No, that's the casting in this mirrors that perfectly. Actually, these are exactly the sort of people you would expect to see in a Christmas movie.
That's right. From
the name actors, Adam Scott and David Koechner, sort of, family comedy guys. They've been in Will Ferrell movies that, they're playing the dads. Allison Tolman, I think, fits in really well in this from Fargo TV.
Yes.
As Koechner's wife and the sister of Toni Collette, who is, I like that because it's a whiff of A24. But she would be making these kind of movies, like Christmas family films at this time, 10 years ago. This is a little before Hereditary, actually. Despite some weird similarities.
Yeah, it did feel like almost a riff on her Hereditary character, or on that. It's strange, I guess, that messes me up, actually, that I had that chronology reversed just because in my mind, like, I encountered one first, and so it cast such a pall or a shadow over the other one. But yeah, like, now I can't see Toni Collette without, she carries a strong scent of hysterical mother losing her mind and supernatural goings on. I mean, going back to like The Sixth Sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's typecasting. It really is. I mean, she's done a lot of horror movies and a lot of family movies and a lot of things that are a combination of the two, like Hereditary and Krampus, which, they're both in their way family annihilation stories.
True.
They both kind of, have a similar result. It depends how you read the ending, I suppose.
Yeah,
we'll get to the ending.
We'll get to that. That's gonna be a whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the sort of the gassy older aunt who likes to swear and make racial slurs. These are all, kind of types that you would expect to be skewered in the pleasant family comedy about Christmas. You almost expect to have a scene with a Santa Claus who might be the real thing at some point. I guess they have the guy at the mall at the beginning.
No, but yeah, you're right. The first act especially has strong, like, National Lampoon vibes.
Mm-hmm. Which they want. That they're going for that explicitly, and then it becomes this weird, dark. I mean, not really a comedy. After the first half hour, it's just a home invasion with a lot of monsters, and there is whimsy to it all. Like I said, no one's getting stabbed here. They're just getting kind of spirited away.
Yeah, it is sinister whimsy, and I guess that is. Mm-hmm. It sets you up the whole time by explicitly cutting away from anything that would be a death scene, and by having them all kind of agree that even as these monsters are kidnapping and in some cases eating the children, that the children are still out there and we will get them back, mm-hmm. which felt like a bit of a leap to me, but it's kind of like, okay, I suppose this is all in service of we need to be able to, undo the Thanos snap at the end of this, so we can mm-hmm. have a Christmas movie that it doesn't include 4 or 5 children being murdered,
right?
Including an infant, a baby,
a baby. Well, that's what's so weird about this, because it is through and through PG-13. Like, it doesn't feel like there was at any point an intent for this to be an R-rated movie. This feels like a movie for families, oddly enough. And also kind of balls to the wall horror for that audience. Like, I think if I saw this as a 10-year-old, the sort of ambiguity of it would have fucked me up way more than, a more traditional Christmas horror film might have.
Well, I think the touchstone to go for here is Gremlins. You probably saw that when you were 10.
Of course.
Or 8.
And that is exactly how Gremlins operates. That is that sort of, even now you watch that movie, I feel like as an adult I have that filed in my mind as one thing, and when I rewatch it, I'm just like, this is darker than I remember. This is kind of a scary film. I think it's undone a little because the second one is, I believe, right, at this point as prominent in people's minds, and that's not a dark film. But the first one is frightening, especially as a kid, and I think that kind of dark whimsy is especially effective to a developing mind and compelling, or at least it was so for me. And so seeing somebody actually tap into that in the 21st century, frankly, because it's almost like a lost thing, was really exciting. And a big part of why this one is so high up on my list.
I'm curious about, like, if your sort of familial Nordic history plays into this somehow. Is that it feels like the farther north you get into Scandinavia, the more the darkness and the violence gets mixed up with the holidays that have been, co-opted by Hallmark.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm a big fan of Nordic Christmas nonsense. It is dark and weird, a lot more trolls. I mean, yeah, of course. Although, again, I mean, this is not really the purest version of the Krampus lore. This is much more.
No, it's not the Robert Eggers Krampus.
Yeah, right. He's man. There's some weird shit up there. Do you know what Black Peter is, by any chance?
I've heard of it. It's one of those things that, like Krampus, for a long time, I thought like it was made up to be a gag on The Office.
Right.
About how weird Dwight Schrute was, and then realizing that no, there's actually a basis for that was revelatory to me.
There is so much dark Christmas nonsense from like the Slavic countries and from Northern Europe and yeah, just based on, I mean, again, it's the Eggers thing. It's just like the world that they have all lived in is dark and difficult, and they need equal stories about just like, oh, well, you didn't do your chores out in the yard. That means Krampus is going to come and eat your toes. Something like that. There's a lot more cautionary tales and sort of dark fairy tale vibes to everything, including Christmas, like Iceland. Do you know about Iceland Christmas lore? It's fantastic. There's no Santa. There's just 12 trolls that come and bedevil you, and you have to do certain things to avoid each of the trolls. The Yule lads.
Is this how we got 12 Days of Christmas? That
I believe the trolls come from the 12 Days of Christmas more than.
I'm honestly starting to wonder if how much of this is just that at the farther north you go, the darker it gets in December and in the wintertime. Well,
exactly. Yes, huge part of it. That's absolutely. They don't have stories like this in like the South Pacific. They don't have Christmas demons there so much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they have, what the closest equivalent of Christmas would be in the tropics, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just it feels like maybe it's harder to come by the genuine holiday cheer the farther up in Scandinavia you get.
They have a thing called the Yule cat. And his deal is he's a giant cat that will eat you if you have not been gifted clothing, which is, of course, something completely out of your control.
Yes, you gotta say, yeah, that's
yeah, yeah.
That is going to touch on the ending here, though, which is something I'd bump on.
Okay.
And I mean, there's a lot we could go through more in the middle if you'd like before we dive into that, but.
I mean, I think I made my main case on this, which is, I'm really taken with both the sort of the design and the philosophy of this movie. And I think they are quite well deployed. I just like the giant cast of characters because I like Christmas movies and horror movies kind of a lot as well. Seeing them actually commingled in a way that, that understands what is effective about both of them. I think that's surprisingly tough to pull off. There's great little stylistic touches throughout this. The animated flashback sequence.
I do like that.
The grandmother's family getting spirited away by Krampus. It's necessary exposition, and they manage to come up with a cool little interlude way to do that. Yeah, I know that's a pretty obvious one, but just the monsters. Sure. I mean, for God's sakes, the monsters and the use of Christmas Vacation. Well, everything really. The design, the shot selection, the editing, the performances, it's all just pitched at such a perfect 1991 era family Christmas film.
Well, we talked a lot about sort of the different strands of DNA in this movie. Mm-hmm. I think one other one is that there's some John Carpenter in here because it becomes a siege movie at a certain point. Of it. And he's sort of our maestro of dark siege movies.
I would have very much enjoyed a dark Christmas John Carpenter film like
Indeed,
that.
yeah.
This could have been a project that passed his desk if he were, if it came along earlier. I feel like, and he probably would have done a hell of a job with it. That would be good.
Yeah, 10 years earlier, this could
Mhm.
man, this would have been a better like final movie for him than The Ward.
Yes. Oh my. Well, what wouldn't, man? That's a real low bar to clear that.
Oh, sure. Okay. Like goes to Mars too. Like there's several of them that it could slot in there for. And he would have an end to it, like even if I don't think that Christmas in the Carpenter household is all that festive. I don't know that he set dresses his house the way the McAllisters do, but but some of that's in here, and particularly the sort of nasty twist ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost think it takes a child of the 80s or of this era to make this film, though. It is a response to things like Gremlins and Poltergeist, in a way. The dark 80s fantasy that was so prevalent. It's kind of weird we made so many of those. If you grew up in the 80s, you saw movies like, The Never-Ending Story regularly, Return to Oz. Yeah, I mean, it was an era where that sort of thing was, I don't even know if it was popular. It was just prevalent. As a result, I watched a lot of it. And so this is a nostalgic thing as much as anything. And I don't know, maybe that's another thing that is required to kind of fully embrace this film the way I have, is to have been, a child in the exact corridor that I was. But then I don't know, it gets to the ending and I'm just like, well, this is the best shit ever.
I mean, it's an ending kind of like for one person specifically.
Maybe.
and yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about, the philosophy of this movie or whatever. That's like a huge part of where it doesn't come into play there. And I suppose technically there's multiple twists, but honestly, the final sort of Twilight Zone twist ending, I don't even like factor that in. Like, oh yeah, of course, whatever. That's do it. For the moment the kid wakes up, it's like, yeah, there's going to be a Nightmare on Elm Street thing to this. But I think that the real twist is when he makes his sort of plea to Krampus that he's, rediscovered the Christmas spirit and wants to exchange himself for the lives of the family members that he wished away earlier. And Krampus laughs at his face.
It's great. It's so awesome. He actually like sticks out his creepy nail and like picks a tear off of his cheek and examines it, finds it hilarious and laughs at and then picks him up and throws him in a hell pit.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a fantastic ending. Okay. You said you had a legal issue with this film. Is this where this comes in? Because I was fascinated. I'm so curious.
Okay. I like this movie a lot, like sort of conceptually, and a lot of the things about it are impressive to me, and I appreciate the novelty of it. But I stayed more of an arm's length from it the entire way through. I think at first it was sort of notice the sort of conspicuous lack of those death scenes. I guess it worked to fool me into thinking, okay, they're setting this up so we can have a happy Christmas movie ending after we do some horror movie stuff. And so I was not fully bought into the peril. But also, I was also a little upset by how much child peril there was in this movie. Because,
it's a
at a stage of parenting where,
yeah.
And I got a couple of little kids, and especially with the baby in there, I'm like, that's like,
I mean,
baby.
yes, I don't mind that in this film. I'm less concerned about my kid getting taken by Christmas elves than I am, just like, a car coming onto the sidewalk. It scares me more. So I can take stuff like this, I think.
But the mother watching the child being eaten by the jack-o'-lantern monster is, or Jack in the Box, sorry.
It is a bit of a Rawhead Rex fucking Clive Barker moment. Yeah.
And it's just sort of, it's a fear, not of Jack in the Box demons, but of watching something happen to my kid that I cannot help. That resonates in a way that it hits harder than the rest of this movie to me. And so maybe I bumped on that a little bit. But also like the drama of it, like it felt like even the characters were not fully buying into the peril enough, because that once one of their kids is taken, like they should be completely shattered as people and unable to like formulate movie character plans. Like they're in a John Carpenter movie at that point.
This goes into the whimsy thing a little bit. I think that these are Roald Dahl kind of characters a bit.
Yes.
You know, like there's definitely a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory quality to the things that happen in this film. You know, the fat kid is literally yanked up a pipe, you know, like it's sure. They behave like the parents in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory do.
Yeah. Well, Alison Tolman's a little realer than that.
Well, they're all a little realer.
Yeah. Not necessarily Koechner. I mean, Koechner is very much in the mold. Like he's our best. If we were doing, I mean, I guess we kind of did with the Tim Burton version, but an Americanized like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like David Koechner is exactly who you'd want to be one of the parents.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. I think casting him and people like Adam Scott are, you know, clues as to what the goal of what they're doing here. You know, I do think all these people are a little bit more grounded than they would be in the Christmas Vacation version. Obviously, they are talking about politics a little more openly. Yeah, they're more grounded. There's more class resentment. There's more, you know, the kind of things that the actual real complaints we would have, you know, with at a sort of unruly family gathering, just a touch than they would be. And I think that's it's a delicate balance that I think is very intentional. And having Koechner there, I think really, well, it's a lot to overcome in a sense, but it also keeps the thing, you know, firmly in satire. And this is a comedy realm, even though, you know, I've shown this to people and like, this is not a comedy, Matt. And I'm like, no, it is. It's funny. See, I think it is. I think it mostly is here, or satire, I guess is a better way of putting it.
I think there is a whole swath of the population for whom you can't have child murder and comedy at the same time.
They're not murdered though. They're just sort of
they're sent to hell for all of eternity. It turns out to be worse, including the baby that has done nothing, that has no character, that has no. Where it's like all that. It's just all it can do is feel pain at that point, and apparently it is damned for all of eternity.
Well, it's not really a pain hell. It's more of a sort of, you know, no exit John Paul Sartre hell with a Christmas angle to it.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, I was saying that I was not fully bought into the peril because I was like prepared for the, you know, the twist that's going to be that they rediscover the Christmas spirit and Krampus lets them go or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you would think, especially having some of the other conversations we've had lately about spoilers or whatever else, that when the twist comes out and it turns out the peril is more real than I've been crediting it for the whole movie, and it's meaner and nastier than I credited it for, that I would like that I would like.
Okay.
But this is where I think I bump on more than like as a parent or as a, you know, movie pilled, like just poison brained nerd. I think I bump on this as a lawyer at the end because Krampus's standards and practices make no sense to me.
Well, yeah, that's the whole, that's the thing. That's it's Christmas whimsy is the rules that he lives by. It is. It is rule bound. He has to be invited or whatever. And there's like, or not, you know. I mean, does he?
Somebody has to. It's not. He's not expressly invited. The people don't know he exists when they make like the wish to be rid of their families. But if he's around to punish ingratitude at Christmas time and like, you know, creating Christmas cheer, I'm like looking around like, okay, but there are 40 million other families in America that had a experience less in keeping with the Christmas spirit than this one. It's like, how are you finding the time? How are you prioritizing this one over 20 million other people? Again, like, is there anybody who's not trapped in a snow globe at this point?
Well, it's because it is selective and random in many senses, and just sort of indicative of absolutely insane, like blockheaded old world religion. I mean, it is like the drag me to hell thing. Like they're being punished their punishment far outweighs the trespass because it's based off of insane old world rules of religion that are stupid, that are capricious and unfair.
Well, but Drag Me to Hell, I think like there's more specificity to it, that there is
true.
a curse, or thinner, perhaps, as another like example. It's you offended one person who happens to have a connection to this thing, and they call down this, Old Testament vengeance upon you. He just wishes into the ether that his annoying cousins would go away. Like a thing that must be happening in homes all over the world. And I just don't understand how Krampus prioritizes this one. And I don't know, like this is something that happens to me sometimes, which I've now decided, I guess, is rooted in lawyer training in some way. But another example of this, another movie I know that you enjoyed, perhaps more than I did, is The Menu.
Yeah. Oh, similar, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I bump on that. That also has strong Charlie and the Chocolate Factory vibes. But Ray Fiennes' sort of standards there confound me. And I'm like, but you're so obsessed with these people disrespecting your restaurant, but also like there must be somebody in your mind that you want to actually eat your food, right? Like it seems like there's like, who in the world do you think this is for? Like, and that must be like, which I guess part of the thing there, he being a person can just be a crazy person.
Sure.
Whose standards don't make sense. Krampus as a spirit that is ruled by some sort of, older, grander, mythological, I don't know, theologies. Like there has to be some standard there. Like it could be out of step with ours, I suppose.
No, there doesn't. Though. That's the thing. It can be. Look, we're going to talk about No Country for Old Men pretty soon.
That is. I was trying not to jump ahead to that, but having watched that a lot lately, yes, that was also on my mind.
There is an aspect here of, it's the strangers. Why us? Because you were home. It just happens to you. Like, why does the family in the Santa Claus, the Tim Allen film, why is he cursed with the Santa Claus curse? He happened to be there when Santa died. I guess he kind of killed Santa. He kind of killed Santa, but
and the Strangers is specifically about there is not I haven't seen The Strangers, but I'm familiar with that trailer line.
That's the whole thing. That's it. No more ideas in The Strangers. Yeah,
but it's specifically about the caprice of that, and that there is you overcome as much as anybody. With nobody had to wish the strangers into existence, as far as I know.
Sure, right. There is a cause and effect to the kid makes a wish. Yeah, right. But that's
based on that cause and effect. There should be no humans left in the world. Is my.
Well, it's. I feel like the way that works is it's once a year he picks one at random. Some circumstance happens, and every year Krampus takes his sacrifice. For the most, that is my thinking. Is how I would read that.
I almost wish that I probably wouldn't make the movie any better if you're, to see Krampus spinning a wheel to decide which wish he's going to act on this year.
Just spinning the globe and putting his finger down.
But there's like too much cause and effect there for the then to be like trying to extrapolate that into anything, which I guess that's the mistake.
But no, I think this decision is based entirely in the satire of the Christmas film, though, in that there is whimsical Christmas magic afoot. And, in almost every movie, that is a positive thing, a net benefit for the characters in the movie, that they have become ensorcelled in whimsical Christmas magic. Like that's gonna pay off for them. Dad's gonna show up at the end, and there's gonna be a ride on the sleigh, and he turns out he really was real all along. Same rules here. Just they ended up with the bad one.
Maybe that's part of it. Is part of the point is that the Christmas magic inherent in other like traditional Christmas movies should be scarier to us.
I mean, the power it wields. That is what I take from this film. Yes, that is the point.
That it also wields it so capriciously, even when it's handing out candies and I don't know new stepdads.
Yeah, like this one homeless kid gets a nice Christmas. That's great for him. It doesn't seem actually fair, though. So that's my read on it. Is it's all part of the thing, all part of the whole. Now, you definitely took the ending to mean one thing, right? That they are trapped in the underworld forever, right? That's your read on the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little checked out from it, from any sense of reality to this internal reality to this movie at this point.
Yes.
So I don't really care what they're trying to say with the end of it. Yeah, okay, sure, Twilight Zone stuff, whatever.
I mean, I think it's specifically very open to interpretation. I think it's an Inception-ish ending, and that you can also just be like, oh, well, Krampus is keeping an eye on him, so they keep the Christmas spirit. And I think that's perfect for a PG-13 family horror film. But I think the heavy implication seems to be that they're trapped in hell or the underworld.
My knee-jerk read was the first one, the darker one.
Mm-hmm. But you can kind of have it either way,
You can. I've heard some people say that's how they
Wikipedia is quite convinced it was all a dream, for example.
Yeah. I have a hard time squaring that with the Krampus who, laughs at the tear. And kills
Me too.
And then right after that, it's just like, but actually, I'm just keeping an eye on you to make sure that you keep the Christmas spirit alive. Like, that doesn't seem to be his thing at all.
No, he doesn't really seem to be mission driven. This seems more like a kind of a almost off the books. I mean, I know it's his deal, but it kind of just seems they're playing this by ear, doing what they like along the way.
Yeah, I guess I have a hard time. It feels too mission driven at the first for me to get to that point at the end somehow. And I think that is my own peccadillo, and it's needing.
Look, again, this is a movie that did not get warmly embraced by almost anyone. This is not. It's a cult hit, a cult favorite. It was profitable as hell, oddly enough, but it's not. This is not most people's go to. Letterboxd says I've watched it 7 times since it came out. So.
Well, it's been 8 years or so.
Yeah, pretty much.
It tracks. You haven't done this year's yet, but you're right on track.
No, I did. I totally did. We had this conversation.
Oh, of course.
I'm watching it now, Al. It's on television right now in front of me. That's with the sound turned off.
Wow. Just this movie, the reaction to this movie is hard for me to track because, as he said, it made more money than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
He said it doesn't feel not for everybody, but everybody that I have seen talked about it seems to have liked it.
I think it was sort of mostly mixed positive responses. I think, my impression. I met nobody who loves it like I do. So, I mean, my wife humors me on it, but.
Yeah, but the other Letterboxd crowd seems to think that it's worthwhile, or that it's it's a 3-star, if not a 4-star masterpiece. Not many people are throwing that snowball at it, but maybe ask the people who didn't like it, just don't talk about it. You don't just want to put it immediately out of their mind.
Pretty much, yeah. People who don't read the ending as I do don't like the film. People who think it is an all a dream ending don't like it. I think that's true, but
that's a very bad ending for a type of ending. I mean, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's why it would be a bad ending if that were how it ended, but it's it's not. They're in the underworld, so and it's a light touch though in that even in a film with lots of Christmas monsters, this is still kind of a light touch film, and I mean that's fun for me. That this is restrained in PG-13 and not really going for the jugular and more for sort of the unsettling.
A tough sit with how it's the nastiness of what it does to all these children. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, you're right. It's not gory or explicit in that way, but it's so much worse than if,
or maybe it was all a dream and Krampus is just keeping an eye on him. Maybe, we're not sure. It's possible. Christmas whimsy. So that's that's my Krampus argument. I mean, I think the performances are really fun. I think the designs are worth it all on their own. Frankly, I'm really love how this movie looks. Even the sound design I think is really fantastic in this. That scene early on when the daughter is getting stalked through the neighborhood by the giant beast jumping from building to building. That's just a good scene. It's it works as horror film very well. Works as a comedy, I think, and is the best satire of the holiday film, the Christmas film that I can think of personally.
Yeah,
and not for lack of trying. There's a lot of those.
I think based on your experience too, I would not try and sell this to people as comedy. It is sort of comic, but not. It doesn't have big laugh lines necessarily. I try and sell it to people as if you want something Christmas themed but darker.
Yeah. I mean the on screen right now, the baby is getting taken out the window by the trolls.
Yeah, that was rough for me. that bit. I don't know, man. We've been doing everything horror tinged we've done lately. It feels like in the last couple of months has just specifically involved child death, child murder, and from The Witch to Hereditary to this, and it hits me differently these days.
Well, it's a bugaboo. I mean, there's a reason it's sort of the last thing you can do, in a horror film. It's sort of the big one, you can devise ways to do something really crazy, but I think the one that's within reaching distance for any horror film is child death. And that's always been the case. Now that we're parents, it's just like, it's kind of hard to express how pronounced that is. And I think this movie probably would hit me different too if I hadn't seen it, several times before I had the kid. But
what's actually odd about that though, is that I think before I had kids, and there was stuff in horror movies about child endangerment or child death, I was better able to process it because I was sort of viewing it through empathizing with the parents. I was looking at it as a thing that happened to the parents, and the parent was the character I was in with. And since I had a kid of my own, now when I see those things, I am thinking about what the kid is going through more, and I am more emphasizing more with the kid than with the parent, and that is so much worse.
Well, I mean, this is part of why this is a film I would call subversive with a capital S. It is the third rail that they can do. And child endangerment is, at the heart of this thing. It's tough. And it's an interesting subject. I mean, we could honestly do a whole episode on child endangerment in film, and it would be,
probably be our most listened to episode, of course. Yeah.
But I mean, for me, an activation point as a child was the 1990 It miniseries. Like that. That's when I kind of became a horror guy, a Stephen King guy. It changed how I viewed media. It was such a big deal to me, and that is It. Stephen King's It is basically child endangerment, the film. Like that's what it is. That's what it's doing.
Well, and there's a difference too, though. I mean, even It and Krampus are almost. I feel like child endangerment's the wrong term, and maybe this is the lawyerness popping up again too. But,
you're right.
Like Goonies endangers children,
right?
But it doesn't actually kill them the way that these movies do. And
sure.
So when you follow through, it becomes something a little more than child. The MPAA will list it as child peril or something like that. This is not peril.
It's like monsters coming from the underworld to destroy children. And the book is insane. If you've read the book, it's just about child's point of view being stalked and killed by a monster. Just like, enjoy that. And then it's very well written. It's crazy.
But there's a difference between Goonies or Stranger Things. Like, yes, there's things, demons come to do that to the kids in Stranger Things. But in It or Krampus, it succeeds in doing that, which is a horse of a whole other color, is my point.
I don't know. Is the supernatural thing sort of leavening, though, in a sense? Like, this is a less upsetting film than Hereditary. I mean, it just is. And by design and by every effective measure you could throw at it, it's it's about Christmas demons at the end of the day. And I'm going to inherently take that a little less seriously. That gives me the window of remove where I can enjoy a thing again in a way that, like Hereditary, I didn't even bother to watch that when we did Elevated Horror. I was just kind of like, nah, fuck that right now. I'm playing with my kid tonight. I'm not going to watch Hereditary afterwards.
Well, Krampus took me by surprise a little bit in that regard.
Well, that's fun then, right? Maybe it's not fun. Maybe it's the wrong thing at the wrong time too.
Well, but
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of the leavening effect, like even the most upsetting portion of this being that Jack in the Box stuff in the attic, that's intercut with Keckner's shenanigans fighting off evil gingerbread men firing nail guns at him, which is like straight out of Gremlins, but even goofier because it's gingerbread men. You know?
Yeah, that's an odd choice. It's the scariest monster encounter in the film, which is the thing in the attic. You know, not just the Jack in the Box, the angel creatures up there too. They're the scariest monsters you see, basically, and people just being like terrified up there. You know, Toni Collette, you know, acting the shit out of being attacked by this creature's tongue. You know,
yeah, it's like there's like a face
bisecting, and yeah. And then downstairs, you know, like CGI gingerbread men are shooting a nail gun at David Koechner. I think it's actually a very a not effective choice to cross-cut those sequences.
Yeah, it's odd that for a PG-13 movie, it's cutting between the R-rated version of the movie and a PG movie version of the movie.
Yeah, that's a weird bit. I mean, I think they both kind of work. They just don't work, you know, right next to each other. So yeah, this is not like, I'm not arguing this is a perfectly made film. There are several like just sort of issues with it, you know, but it's kind of the cumulative effect is the thing that I'm so taken by. And and it's something that other movies don't really have, I think.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I will give you that. This is a fairly unique movie, and it goes for something that I can't embrace as wholeheartedly as you, but I kind of like that it exists. Now you've kind of pulled me around to that. Like, not every Christmas movie should be this, obviously, but there should be one of these out there for just freaks like you.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's there. I'm appreciative of it. You know, I speaking of my kid, I do feel bad for her because, you know, how old is she gonna be when I force this on her? Probably too young. It seems inevitable.
Yep.
I will do my best to keep it from her as long as I can. But, you know, she's, you know, is it going to be before she's 13? Probably. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Sorry, Imogen.
Yeah.
She'll see Die Hard first. I'll tell you that. Tell you what, she'll see Die Hard first.
I guess it's this. I would say Gremlins comes before this.
Yeah,
but
definitely. Gremlins has restorative justice, and no one good really dies in it. I don't know. I think they're of a similar time, though. I mean, it's the legacy of Gremlins. You know, that it's the kind of film that just doesn't happen anymore, and thank God it exists as a result. I mean, they don't even really try and fail to make movies like this really anymore.
I don't see this one traveling well overseas necessarily. I mean, maybe to Northern Europe, but not to Asia and Africa.
It's a $15 million budget, you know. You make a lot of money on horror movies. That's why this made money. It's a horror movie. They're quite profitable because they're cheap and you can sell them, you know. Christmas Monster. You can sell that. It's fine. This actually came at a glut of Krampus movies. This is like the only one that a studio made that got a real release. But if you look like up Krampus movies, there's like 8 that came out like between 2014 and 2018, and then no more. We had our fun with Krampus. Moved on. It was sort of meme status, I guess, for a bit.
Yeah.
I got it. There's Krampus Unleashed. There's A Christmas Horror Story. There's Krampus The Devil Returns. Krampus The Reckoning. Krampus The Return. Christmas Bloody Christmas. Yeah. Krampus versus Bigfoot.
Are any of those Krampus movies in a cinematic universe with each other? Are there is Krampus Returns a sequel to one of the other ones?
I mean, some of these might be sequels to other ones. I mean, Krampus The Devil Returns has a 2 on it, but I'm not sure if it's a sequel to Krampus The Reckoning or Krampus Unleashed or Krampus The Return. I mean, here's the thing. I'm never going to watch any of these. You know, I kind of have the one I need, and I don't necessarily think this is a really important character in any way. So I think we kind of nailed the Krampus movie, and we can move on from it. Unless Robert Eggers does want to take a stab at it, I suppose. Oh, Krampus, the Christmas Devil, Krampus Origins, Lady Krampus. That's a sequel to something. Krampus 3, Hell Awakens. There's a lot of Krampus movies, it turns out, man. More than I knew.
Man, that is... I mean, I guess that's what horror does, right? But
yeah,
it feels somehow, combining with the commercialism of Christmas, manages to make somehow both those things feel more crass, which is a tall order.
There is an aspect of consumption getting satired in this film too. I mean, I think you just can't make a Christmas movie without doing that. Even the most, consumption forward Christmas movie imaginable is probably the Jim Carrey How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is sort of a repudiation and celebration of merchandising at the same time.
That's an interesting one. And he's about as a creature design, he's about as horrifying as Krampus is in this one.
Yeah, he is. I mean, you can't really make that thing look normal.
But also, in terms of satire, the opening sequence of Krampus is pretty
it's a called shot, man. Yeah,
I was almost worried. Is this too pleased with itself for how it's taken down the Christmas spirit and all that, or the commercial, ugly American aspects of it. It ultimately feels kind of that maybe what set me up for my legalistic bickering with this movie is look, every other person in this store in this opening you've showed me should be higher on Krampus's hit list by estimation. So I'm baffled by how this creature has seems to have very strict rules for what it can and can't do, but also they're lax enough to include this family.
I mean, it's not that he's the worst. It's not that the little girl living in Slavic Europe during a famine, deserved this when she got mad at her parents for, it's capricious. It's based on religious bullshit that isn't fair. And that's I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've stated this already, but that's the way I would organize it in my head, at least. And yeah, that's why it's subversive.
It is that. I'll give it that.
All right. I've really overstated my point at this case. All right. I thank you, Al, for taking the time to watch this film and discuss it with me. This is a Christmas gift to me, It's nice, I think, to get something like this out. We've been wanting to kind of talk about Christmas movies in some fashion, probably since we started this. And I don't think we ever managed to actually do it because of December being the hardest month of the year, no matter what, always.
Yeah, it's hardest to record. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for indulging me. And thanks everyone for listening to us through our, right through the middle of the least interesting Coen brother movies that we have all dropped in December. It's been a real pleasure. I've been enjoying it very much this year. And Happy New Year to you, Al. And to all of us.
Thank you. I hope Krampus steals none of your children.
I do too. That would be good. Thank you.